Welcome to Real Talk TV. I'm your host, Darryl Buchanan. Before we start the show, I'd like to just give a couple shout outs. Like I always do, I like to give a shout out to Leaving the Street Ministries out there in Haverhill. My friends Wanda and Jesus is doing big things with the kids out there. Just want to let you guys know I love you and support you. I also like to give a shout out to Yard Time Entertainment. Joseph Toot Bennett, man, he's doing big things. He had just started a men's group also for mental health. You can check that out online. Get with him if you want to get involved in that. And I'd like to give a shout out to the people that make this happen. Like without these people, this show wouldn't be hitting. I'd like to thank Alex. I'd like to thank Mike. I'd like to thank Ryan. And I'd like to thank Matt. And again, I really appreciate all that you guys are doing, man. And you make this show happen. Today I have a very important guest. Been looking forward to having this guest on the show. When I put up a thing where I asked, what you guys and who you guys would like me to interview, his name came up. A lot of you guys supported, DM'd me, and told me how you felt about him. So he's here today, and I'm just happy to have him here. His name is Matt Ganem. He's the owner and founder of Aftermath Addiction Treatment Center out in Wakefield. He's in long-term recovery, and he's also an award-winning poet. And Real Talk TV is happy to have this gentleman here. Hey, Matt, like I said, I appreciate having you here.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
It is, man. It's an honor to be here. Let me ask you a question. Can you tell my viewers a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah. At this point in life, you kind of summed it up, I am the owner of Aftermath Addiction Treatment Center, CEO, fancy title.
Yes,
all
sir.
Cool. I'm a father of 2 kids. I got a beautiful daughter that's 9 years old, Peyton. I got a handsome 14-year-old son, Christian.
Yeah.
In recovery for 16 years. I've been writing poetry since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Recovery advocate, been in the trenches trying to create change and inspire others that they can do it. Because when I was getting high, you didn't see somebody with 5-10 years. It was jail or death were like the only 2 options.
Yeah.
So trying to create that change, put my story out there, show some people that it can be done, and that you're not in a unique situation that you can't get out of, that helplessness and hopelessness.
Cool.
So.
I appreciate that. Listen, we were talking earlier, right, and that story about Aftermath, and I have here, how'd you come up with that name? What does it mean? And tell me a little bit about that.
So, a lot of it stems from my ability of people saying that I can't do something and trying to prove them wrong.
Right, right.
I think Aftermath, in our discussion, it starts from poetry. It starts with building a foundation, creating opportunities. I'm not educated. I didn't go to school. I'm good with people. I'm good with networking, and I work really hard. And I also adapt, like any good drug addict can do. You take some of those skills that we learn on the street and you apply them to real life, and you can really thrive and succeed. So Aftermath, the name of it stems from really an ugly situation and failure, and but some betrayal in that as well. I was in a situation that I built a program in Massachusetts, opened up a treatment center, 2016 or whatever. Really felt like it was my baby. Staffed it, had an incredible staff over there. Some people got really good recovery. We did really good things for the community. Being a grassroots kind of guy, we're involved. Anything that I'm a part of, I try to be involved with, any recovery events, any sporting events. So we really, we really build a part of the community. And unfortunately, a situation played out that I kind of felt like I got stabbed in the back, and that baby was taken from me, and it was stripped. And in that moment right after I went through all the different emotions that you go through, the anger, the regret, how didn't I see this, all these different feelings, the first thought that came to me, unfortunately, a buddy of mine, Christy Nicola, came down and was like, you can't change what's happened. You know what I mean?
That's a fact,
acceptance is the key. What are you going to do now? What's your plan? And I filed for the business name Aftermath Addiction Treatment Center. Had no idea how I was going to get it done, right? I hadn't, I was not in the best situation, financially. You know, I had just paid my taxes. I didn't really leave myself much wiggle room to like get a whole new business started. But Aftermath stems from, you know, it's the aftermath of that situation, how it played out, and that failure. And like, regardless of however and whatever happened in that, I'm blessed that I gained knowledge for 4.5 years. I was blessed with an opportunity that somebody like me shouldn't have had. We were one of the first like private PHP treatment centers that was put together, and I didn't know much going into it. So, you know, you can either look at that failure or loss as like, oh, how could this happen to me? Go back into the victim mind state of like, you know, chasing sympathy and feel sorry for yourself, or you can't change anything and time to take action. And Aftermath was that action. You know, it was the aftermath of a crappy situation and a bad falling out. And, you know, and our logo is the Phoenix. And, you know, it's like a rebirth, reborn. And, you know, we hit the ground running with Aftermath, and very blessed that, like, you know, even after that situation, you know, I was going through doubts of my ability, what I, you know, my methods of trying to help people, of you know, the program that I ran. You know, I was going through it. You know, I thought I was gonna have to sell my house. My son, who looked at me as I grew to this position of being a boss, and he's like, "How's the boss get fired?" And I'm like, "Damn, that, you know." Thought I was his hero. Now, you know, I'm having tough conversations like, hey, we might have to sell our house. We might have to take a step back. Like, I don't know, you know, what this situation is going to do. And then, you know, when you're going through like the ups and downs or like the emotions through something like that, you know, I'm going through like severe inner turmoil. And one of the most beautiful aspects of that period is the amount of people that like jumped to my support.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I was showered with love at some of my worst moments. And, you know, people just like talking about situations that I'd helped them in the past, or moms that was like, you know, Matt always answered the phone no matter what, no matter how many times my kid needed help. And, you know, I've gotten clean at his place, and I have 3 years now, 4 years now, like beautiful, beautiful things as I'm going through this turmoil. And like that helped pick me up and carry me through some of like those darkest moments. You know what I mean? So.
Let me ask you, I do want to get back to talk more about Aftermath, man, because I heard a lot about it, and people do have some really good things to say, especially about your staff, and you know, that
Best staff.
It's incredible,
in the
man.
industry, I'll tell you that.
It's incredible, you know, the research, and yeah, it's incredible. But I wanted to talk about, could you, let's go back to the beginning a little bit. What was your environment like, and what, you know, was your father there, mother, what was going on when you was growing up?
So I grew up in a broken home. My father ended up taking off on my mom. When I was younger, I was a troublemaker, screaming for attention. I was a follower. You know, one of the things I try to teach my kid now is be a leader, not a follower. Because when I was a kid, I followed my group of friends to whatever they did, I was doing. I just wanted, you know, to be a part of. And early on, it was sports, and I would indulge like over the top in playing baseball, basketball, football. And then, you know, then it was like causing problems and you know, stealing from the corner store, or breaking windows in houses on the way home. Like, I started getting into like trouble for like attention, and you know, really rebellious type activity. You know, probably looking back with hindsight, screaming out for help, you know, crying out for help. And you know, I had a little sister. I was always getting in trouble. I ended up getting moved around through different schools. I went to a different middle school than all my friends, and then I went through 4 different high schools in 2 states.
Damn.
And I got kicked out of 2 high schools my freshman year. You know, I got, you know, my freshman year in high school, I started, like, I was experimenting with, like, ecstasy, mushrooms, Special K. I was getting, you know, everybody else is drinking.
What age round was that?
I was 14.
Wow, yeah.
Which is crazy because my son's 14 now. And we'll get, you know, I'm sure there's some questions about that, but we can get into like some prevention stuff with him. But at 14, you know, everybody else, you know, on Friday, Saturday, they want to drink. I want to like take a handful of ecstasy and roll and, you know, chew on bottle caps and all the good stuff that comes with it. And, you know, just I was just doing dumb stuff at that age. And I was getting into fights and, you know, just not doing good, not being, you know.
Yeah, just being out there,
whatever.
Caught up.
And, you know, eventually that drug use. My third high school, my first period of sobriety, my sophomore year. I was in my third school, Minuteman Tech. It was a regional school. I loved it because I got to go to school for a week and I did shop for a week, which was perfect for somebody like me because I learned, but I need to see it and I need to go through it compared to lecturing. But my junior year at that school, I got introduced to Oxycontin, and that's when
It's a wrap, huh?
yeah, everything went downhill. Started getting into worse trouble. My mother kicked me out. So I was couch hopping at 16 years old. I was sleeping on friends'
Did she
couches.
kick you out or you just left?
She told me to leave. So, but it wasn't, hey, leave forever, right? It was, if you're not going to follow the rules of this house, because I wasn't coming home. I was staying out all night partying, hanging out with friends, like, just not listening to the rules of the house. And she was just fed up with it. Another night of me not coming home and her worried of where I was.
Yeah.
And she was just like, if you can't follow the rules, you need to leave. And what I heard in my head is, you don't want me. You don't need me. I'm gone. I'm never looking back.
Yeah.
And, I ended up taking off in that, like, I'm going to show you, like, I don't need you. And, because I'm like, I have this mentality, chip on my shoulder that motivates me to, like, all right, out of spite, you don't think I can do something, I'm going to try and prove to you that I can.
That gives you energy, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
That puts you
So, so I ended up bouncing around a little bit, couch hopping. I'd wear out my welcome. And then at that time, I started, like, really looking up to, like, the wrong group and the wrong people. And, they were selling drugs. They were committing crimes. My drug abuse started getting worse. Oxys aren't really a Friday, Saturday thing for me. It was, I need to do whatever it needs to do to get it every day. So I was selling them and, kind of things just took off. And when you don't really have oversight, it's not like not that I listened to my mother when I lived there, but now I'm staying at a friend's house. The second they tell me, hey, you can't do this, you need to be home, I'm off to find the next spot.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, it was like me, Dougie, and Sparky were staying with their older brother's kid's mother that we had, like, we were living in the projects and didn't really have, we were all sleeping on couches and
strung out.
Yeah.
So let's get a little further. So tell me a little bit about the end. I mean, how was the end? How was the fall? I mean, where were you at?
So going back to that, things are good. Everything's great,
The Pablo Escobar dreams, right?
Yeah. But I thought, I was like one of the first. So when I turned 18, I was like one of the first kids in my friend group to have an apartment. I was selling drugs out of it. I thought I was, this big bad, drug dealer. You have power. People want to be around you because you have something, right? Yeah. This illusion that I had at that time. So it was good times. Like, we party, a bunch of friends are around. All of my friends were doing 80s at the time. And by the end of it, you're alone. You're alone, no family. I was in and out of programs. I did a little jail stint. You just don't, you're not the person people want to be with when you're not selling drugs, you know? So I spiraled out, went from oxys to heroin, smoking crack, to shooting crack, homeless, bouncing between Boston Commons, friends' couches.
Wow. That's the
just running amok and not showering, not like brushing my teeth, not taking care of myself. Meanwhile, the whole time, like, I'm getting high to die. Like, at this point in my life, I enjoy getting high, and then I was doing it to end it. You know what I mean? Like, I hated the way that I lived. My family was done with me. My sister was ashamed. I couldn't call anybody because every time I called them, it was like, hey, I'm sorry, but let me stay there. And then people would let me stay there, and then something would go missing. Because I'm not a good guy when I'm getting high. Like, I don't care if you're my family or you're my friend. I'm going to rob you. I'm going to steal from you. I'm going to take, because I need to get high. And that's the only thing that matters to me. It was the thing I woke up to, went to sleep with. It's all that obsessed completely, 24/7. And I would do everything every night that I got it, and I would wake up being like, why am I still here? Like, the taste of regret that I didn't pass peacefully in my sleep. And, it's just, that's where it led me. And I would try to go to detox, and I would bail early. And I had, like, the illusion of being a tough guy, right? And the times that I would get to the programs, right, I'd be at a halfway house, and I'm 19, 20 years old, terrified. Like, I'm a young man, but I'm like a scared boy trapped inside a young man's body. And you remove those drugs, that illusion of tough guy, all the confidence that I had, all that stuff that comes with it. I'm looking at dudes that did 10 years in prison, walking around the house. I'm like, fight or flight would kick in, and I'm like, it's easier to get high than try to stay clean.
Wow.
And I'd be out. And, I ended up, in the process of that, I caught like a Class A distribution. I was selling dope to support my habit. I was a monkey that sold bananas, and I had some charges I was facing. I went to county for a little bit, and I was facing state time. And the end of my run, I was sleeping head to toe on a futon with my boy Eddie, and we were living with his mother, and we got high with his mom, and that was like our way of, well, when he ended up in the Hamilton house, I was giving her dope as my way to be able to stay there. And so at this point, I did not shower. I didn't brush my teeth. You just don't take care of yourself. I get up, peel my flesh off the pillow, and go hustle in the streets to get high, and just
go back to
repeat
the pillow
the cycle.
again.
You know, same thing. And so one morning, I'm dope sick. I couldn't get anything like the night before, and his mom was getting high in front of me, and she's like, "You got an effing problem. You need to go and get help." I'm like, that's the one thing that I needed to feel good. I ended up getting up, and I went to the bathroom, and I looked at myself, and like it was probably the first time I took like an in-depth look at who I was for probably 3-4 years. Like, you go in the mirror, you try to make sure your hair's somewhat good, or there isn't anything.
So you don't look like a thief. Like, so you don't look like a thief.
Yeah.
Right?
But I looked, and like Skeletor was looking back. Like I had, my eyes were sunken in. I was like 130 pounds and 6 feet tall. It was a stranger looking back. And I was like, for that moment, I wanted to live more than I wanted to die. And for the last probably year and some change at that point, like every day, I didn't want to live. And,
wow. So it was a run, still a run after that?
I got high that was it. I ended up getting high, almost OD'd at an emergency room, ended up in a detox, and that was the last time, I ended up getting high and kind of launched my life in recovery and the rebirth from there.
Dope. The Phoenix again, huh?
Yeah.
So I wanted to say, first wanted to let you know, congratulations on 17 years. Coming
16. Up 17 soon.
In 2 months. So I'm saying, because I won't see you, or hopefully I'll get in touch with you, but I'll say it again. But 17 years, you're closer to 17 than you are 16, right?
Yeah.
That's a big thing. Let me ask you just a little bit away from that a little bit. Let me ask you your thoughts about this. A lot of people, we're talking about this stigma thing, and people just think we're making these choices and that we're weak morally, we're people that make weak morally. Let me ask you a question. Is it a disease or a choice to you, and why do you feel that way?
I think it's a disease.
Okay.
It's not a choice.
Why do you feel
I wasn't sticking a needle in my arm by choice. I wasn't homeless by choice. I wasn't trying to rob you of your wallet and help you look for it by choice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, obviously, you can look back at different choices I made and decisions I made over time. But that obsession, that compulsion, everything that's associated with getting high is a disease. It's a disease of more. It's a void that we're trying to fill, and we find it with different things. And it's not, so we got strung out on drugs, but you remove those drugs, there's still shopping, sex, there's still other things that we can be obsessive and compulsive with. So I don't believe that it's just a choice on drugs. I think ultimately, like, we have a disease of more, and it's progressive, and it can go in remission, it can be active. Like, even in recovery, my disease is kicked up, whether I was trying to get a name with poetry and trying to sell books out of the back of my car. There's different things that really ramp it up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That are,
Yeah, my sponsors
it's the mentality or whatever that we have. But I definitely know that there probably was a choice at one point that I chose.
Maybe the first time.
I chose to get high.
Yeah.
The first time I did an OC, I was around people and I didn't have the courage to say no. Yeah. In that moment, I chose it, right? But eventually, that choice disappears, and I had to have it by any means, and I didn't care what I had to do to get it.
Yeah, I believe
when
that.
You get to that point, like, some people are blessed where it's only a choice. So you can go drink on a Friday, or you can go have a little bit of fun on a weekend. Like, that's
me.
Morning, noon, and night.
That's not me.
I am chasing this to
Where's
the
the
grave.
after party? The after party.
Like, everybody's going home, and I'm still standing. Like, where's the next one? Where else are we going? How else are we chasing this?
I get it. My sponsor used to tell me, I get it, right? He used to say, Darryl, you said something about obsession and compulsion. He says, if drugs are your problem, you're probably not an addict. And I didn't understand that for years, but you're right. I went into the gym once the drugs were down.
It's the behaviors. The behaviors, and even now, like, part of my success stems from the hustle that I had when I was out on the street. Yeah, I turned it and put it into positive things, and I've done, like, beautiful things in my life with it. But there's also, like, times that my life wasn't manageable, and I've had to be more conscientious as I've gotten older that I need a healthier balance, and I need to try to work on not going to such an extreme that, like, everybody else is affected, because that's the way
even
I'm
if you're going for a good thing, right?
Even if it's good, like like even like poetry, I've taken a step back from it because when I'm doing different events and shows and speaking at all these places, plus working, like my kids suffer.
Yeah.
And even looking at my son's life, my son, like I'm blessed and we have such a bond. And a lot of his life, he had to suffer through like, hey, instead of doing this, I need you to come here because in this 2-hour window, you know, I have to perform poetry and speak and I don't have a babysitter and I have to, you have to come with me. And there's a good part to that. My son's very aware of my story and it's not something I hide. I'm very transparent.
It's something that you've told him, right?
Yeah. I've been
up
up front and then he's seen the type of impact that like sharing my story and what I went through has. So he's not looking, my son doesn't look at me like, oh, my father's a heroin addict. My son looks at me like my father helps people just like him to get better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, he also knows that, you know, it is a good time in the beginning and you do have fun, but he's also more likely to fall down that same path. You know what I mean?
Are you scared of that, bro?
Yeah, I'm terrified of that.
I think of like that with my kids too. Like damn.
Because I look, he's 14 years old. I had already been kicked out of 2 schools. I was already doing drugs.
Yeah.
I was already getting in trouble.
Sexually active, all
yeah,
that.
like all
open.
that stuff. And I look at him and his attitude will piss me off all the time. But I'm like, this kid is so good in comparison to who I was.
Yeah.
And then I look at it and I'm like, I have regret of what I put my family through. You know what I mean? Like the sleepless nights, everything that's associated with that, like that's terrifying to think that could be my kid out there.
It is terrifying.
If different choices and like peer pressure. So, you know, I'm very big on, you know, in my situation when I first started, the peer pressure and not having an out, right? Mm-hmm. It was presented to me because my friends were doing it. I needed to do it too.
You can't be a sucker.
Because I didn't want to be embarrassed. I didn't want them to point the finger out. I felt like if I didn't do it, they'd make fun of me. But I also didn't have an out. I didn't have like, my parents weren't like, hey, if you're put in this situation, this is what you should do.
Wow.
Where like I talked to my son knows, like I have a drug test waiting at home. And if you don't want to do something and your friends are trying to push you, sorry guys, drug test at home, my father's a psychopath. Which they all like, you know, they all kind of look at me different than the other parents in the town or whatever, and that's his out. And ultimately, I told him, if you make a choice, like that's your choice, I want you to be able to talk to me about it, because he's gonna make his own choices, and I hope I equip him with the education and knowledge that when he's put in those situations, that he makes the best decision for him, and it doesn't turn out like that.
Yeah, that's dope. It is scary though.
It's scary.
It's mad scary. Mm-hmm. Like you said, you know, you wonder if, and then the hereditary
part,
like, all that crazy stuff.
You're like, and I see tendencies. So like, especially working in treatment, I deal with so many different walks of life that like, one of the big things that I pick up on is people's patterns.
Yeah.
Now I see patterns in my kid, and I'm like, that's obsessive compulsive. I'm like, oh, dude, no, please, like pull away from this, or pull away from electronics, or like, you know, like there's big time addictive behaviors, especially with video games, computers, tablets. It's like, how often are we just passing it? You know, and I'm not better than. It's not like I'm not saying that I haven't done it, but you give
the baby
something, go get fixated because I need to do this, and it's only temporary. But like, you know, you pull that. The times I would pull it from them, it's like you taking a bag of dope from me, and I'm ready to spaz because, you know, same thing with him. You take that, he has a meltdown, temper tantrum. So like,
you know, he's 14.
He's 14.
My son's 4 and he does that already. I can't take the tablets are crazy.
But I will say, him knowing my story, educating, and not like fear driven. Like you can't just say no. You can't like,
that don't work.
You're gonna get in trouble if you do this. Like, no, this is what happens. Like we were talking earlier at the recovery center. I showed basketball diaries to my son the other day, and it's a more
graphic,
mature, very graphic.
Story.
It's a real story.
It's real.
And I relate to a lot of that movie as like a poet. I played basketball in high school. Like, there's a lot of things that I relate to, and it's a realism look.
It is real.
So we sat down, we watched it, and it was cool because he was asking me questions during it, being like, yo, Dad, is this like...
a word? Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's where it ends up. And in the beginning, it's fun. It's all fun and games. Everybody's having a good time. And he's like, oh, was it like fun? I was like, yeah, it was the best time of my life for some of it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. That's the crazy part.
But that's the reality. And I go, but for people like me, and what could potentially be for you is like, you know, one kid in that friend group peels off because he's like, yo, this isn't me.
3 was down.
3 guys went down. I'm like, I was those 3 guys that was like, oh, you're better than, you know, it just progressively got worse. It wasn't just drinking and taking some drugs. It was like I'm smoking crack and shooting heroin.
Yeah, it's true.
You know?
Yeah, let me get away from that for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was dope. Yo, the definition of a hero, right? And the reason why I say that, I'll tell you in a minute. The definition of a hero is a person who is admired or idealized for courage and outstanding achievements or noble qualities. And once people knew you were coming, there's a few people I just want to, Mandy M, I don't want to say her last name just because, but she said, you're a hero. She said you saved her life. She wouldn't be where she was at if it wasn't for you. You took her in, right? And Helen G, who's a friend of mine, so you just met there, she called you a hero. Said your poetry saved her at her darkest times. How do you feel about stuff like that? I mean, and I'm not saying it, because we have to accept good things that people say. No matter
it's hard,
what
though. It's hard.
It is hard, but that's these people's perceptions.
I mean, the first reaction to hearing stuff like that is it's wild. It's amazing. It's something I'm grateful for. It's like one of the coolest things to hear when somebody considers you in that regard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's hard to take. I don't like compliments. I don't think a lot of us do. I think a lot of us still struggle with,
but that's so dope,
self-esteem.
though. I'm saying that's so beautiful.
That is a beautiful thing. Like I'm not trying to put that down. It is hard because one of the things, like, I'm sure people that like brag and I, me on everything, and that's
so you
not
try to
something.
stay away from that.
I try to, I love that I get to help people. I live with a purpose. I've been doing a lot of work in the recovery field for a long time. I know my poetry has inspired others, which is cool. It's, I've watched people that started writing poetry based off of like them seeing me put it out there. That were like, oh, I thought this was corny. And then I saw you do it, and you gave me like the courage to do this, or inspire them to do more. And I mean, a lot of that is when I was trying to get clean. There wasn't somebody running around being like, oh, I have 5 years or I have 3 years clean. Like, there wasn't recovery stories, to my knowledge, to the area I lived in, the friends I was with. It was like jail or death.
Yeah.
So, like, part of it was I want to put my story out there and share it. And the way I did it was with poetry. And,
I mean, it resonated with a lot of people. You know
what I mean?
like, I was giving you a book. I don't want to I was giving you a book. Shadow of an Addict. Carolyn gave me the book, and I was reading it, and I did reach out to you one time. I don't know if we actually collapsed, but and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I do want to say, bro, take that, man, right? Because that's we inspire people, and we inspire people, right? How about, oh, he ain't no good. How about he's a zero?
Well,
right? So we're like, okay with that.
But that, and a lot of it goes, like, I've been, especially starting with the poetry, which obviously I have this like wild life that's insane when I look back on it. But one of the big things that I wanted to do is leave like a positive legacy behind when I'm gone. Yeah. So I did so much wrong when I was getting high, hurt so many people. And I try to go the opposite way of trying to help and give back and, to leave that, like, I want to have a positive imprint when I'm gone. I want to leave a legacy that, like, when my kids, when I pass, whenever that is, my kids can always be like, I'm proud of my father. My father did good work. You know what I mean? And hearing stuff like that, like, again, it just, that reinforces, the stuff that I do day in and day out. Like, because how often do we hear about somebody dying, overdose? You know what I mean? Like, that's what we hear more of, is the negative of the pitfalls of it, and to be a light, a hero to some is pretty, it's pretty amazing. It's something that, like, it hits my heart, and
I'm not saying it wasn't just a couple people. I'm telling you, it was more. I just took these two because
it's cool.
I just thought it was important, man, and I think it's important for them to hear. People, they'll watch the show, and for them to hear that their words have been translated, to you.
Well, Mandy's a hero of mine too.
She's a hero of yours, yeah.
When you look at her circumstances, what she had to go through, how she overcome it, and how she's giving back.
She just went over through something,
She's a recovery warrior. You know what I mean? And, like, and that's really, again, going to
and she
some
credits
of the
you for that.
Yeah.
She
but
credits
to
you for that.
inspire that and then have that ripple effect of like, I try to show
Like
you.
reproduce yourself.
Yeah, like I'm
Oh, yeah.
going to share my story and I'm going to show you what you can do and try to inspire that you can. And then if you do that, you try to inspire the next person.
The next person.
And it's that, you know what I mean? Like if we do that for a couple people and then they do it for a couple of people, it's like all of a sudden that negative overdose is replaced with 5 years clean opens recovery home,
Yeah.
10 years clean gets doctrine, 15 years clean, you know what I mean, opens recovery centers across state.
Yeah.
Like that's, you know, ideally one of the things to try to push is to show that success happens and that you can achieve some amazing things once you get clean.
And that's what this show is about. And that's, I think that was one of the main reasons why I wanted to do the show. I wanted to put people on. Because I was like, man, they always showing bad things,
Yeah.
death. But there's people that live. And that death, it breeds hopelessness.
Yeah.
And I wanted to have some hope and show the faces like people do recover. Help
Yeah.
us and help us do this. The more they see. And not only get clean, but get a life second to
Yeah,
none
not
again.
just settling for
No,
clean,
no,
you know what I mean?
and
Like,
yeah, I'm gonna tell you. I don't know if you agree, but actually, some of the smartest people I've ever seen in my life. I've experienced.
We're the most
with them.
compassionate. We're the hardest working.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even when we're down and out, we'd still give to somebody else. Like,
Yeah.
I get we all,
We do
slide
good.
sheet, manipulate. We do some wild
But there's
things.
that thing,
But
you're
then
right.
there's something else, the level of compassion that, like, if somebody's struggling, we're always going to be there and try to help them.
Do
You
something,
know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, there's a lot of really good people with good souls that get caught up in the wrong thing. You know what I mean?
That's crazy. Tell me a little bit about Aftermath, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the research, that I've done on, Aftermath. I mean, the people are talking crazy, beautiful about your staff, man. They're like,
My staff makes me
your
look
staff,
good.
Yeah,
That's the biggest thing.
It was like everyone was like, that staff is compassionate,
Yeah.
that staff. Tell me a little bit about the program, the daily workings of the program, and
then
about
go
the
into the
staff
staff.
and how they operate.
So just like a rundown of Aftermath. It's a PHP, IOP, OP.
Okay. And it's located in Wakefield.
It's located in Wakefield, right on Lake Quinnipiac, and it's right off the
Right
highway.
on the lake, too?
Right on the lake, yeah.
I got you.
It's a beautiful, beautiful location.
Yeah.
And it's basically Monday through Friday. We have a day treatment program. It goes 9 to 3. In there, you get group counseling, individual counseling, case management help.
Dual diagnosis?
Dual diagnosis too, yeah. And then we have an evening track that's 5:30 to 9, Monday through Thursday. And same thing, group therapy, individual therapy. That's more for like people that work during the day. We do in person, then we also can provide telehealth. And we try to work with everybody. We're right now at the moment. We're more out-of-network private insurance than in-network, but we have an in-network with Tufts, so we can take Tufts HMOs, any Tufts we could take, as well as Tufts Mass Health, and that's something that was important to me because the place I was at before, we didn't take any public plans, and I'm a Mass Health guy. I went through public programs to get clean, so I wanted to try to help the people that was just like me. And then what makes us different, because there's a lot of great programs out there, there's a lot of people that do great work. I think one of the best things about us is the culture and the community that we create. And it stems from the staff. And we're in the trenches side by side with you when you're going through it. And
all the staff have substance use disorder?
all of them except one.
Okay, so the general thing
Just
is
about
people
everybody
experience,
has
they
it.
know.
So like when I would go through different programs, and I'm talking like, trauma with, I had to take my best friend down when we were 19, and he hung himself. So I tell that story with the therapist is reading out of a book.
Yeah, they ain't with it yet.
What are you gonna do? Or I, stuck needles in my arm, and they're like, because again, when I'm getting high and getting into detoxing places, I'll go throw my story out there, fold my arms, and be like, "What are you gonna do?" And I had this whole victim thing that I wore like a badge of honor. You know what I mean? Like if you were in my situation, you'd feel bad and get high like me too.
Yeah.
And then for me, I went to the Hamilton House, and there was one of the counselors there. I tried to pull my spiel, and he told me to shut up, and I'm not buying that. That doesn't change what you can do from here and moving forward. And I felt like because he ran like me, I related on such a different level, so I couldn't even BS him.
Yeah.
I couldn't manipulate him the way I could manipulate some other people and getting them to like feel sorry for me or sympathetic to my circumstances, because he could see through my BS.
Yeah.
And because of that, when running a center, not that it's required because I got to follow employment laws, but
Yeah.
a lot of like the personal experience and the knowledge when you're going through a wide range of different people. Like we have, we can treat the trust fund baby to the homeless dope fiend because everybody that works for us has had addiction, alcoholism at different levels. So you come from a place of experience on top of mixing that with clinical experience. You get a completely different approach that's more engaging, I feel like, than some of the clinical groups that I would have to go through in programs or an outpatient, places.
Is it just outpatient?
So it's just outpatient.
It's just outpatient for now?
For now, I got some business plans in the works for some other things, but for right now, it's just outpatient, day treatment, IOP. But then you create that culture in here. Also, there isn't a hierarchy. It's not like you can't go and talk to me. My office door is always open. Joe Papa, our clinical director, you can talk to him at any given time. You might be somebody's therapist, but they also relate to Nikki. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then they can go and talk to Nikki. Like we don't have
whatever they feeling for that day, right?
Yeah, like we
feeling.
want you to feel like you're not just somebody's client. You're not just somebody's number. You're a part of this community.
Wow.
And we're gonna try to, ride and support you and try to put you in a position to succeed.
And that's different, Matt, because you go to places, you get a worker. No, go see your worker.
Yeah,
I ain't you want to go see your worker.
I can't do it. I can't talk to you
I
right
can't
now
talk to you,
because of whatever. And ultimately, like, we're not the ones that help you get clean. You have to be accountable for your actions. We'll try to equip you with tools, knowledge, support, but ultimately, like, it's on you. And we don't try to hide that. We try to,
That's dope, though, yeah.
And then when you talk about the staff, they're just the best in the business. I mean, they genuinely care. And you can tell, like, when somebody's authentic and when somebody's not.
Yeah.
And there's not a staff member that I have that's in it for a paycheck.
Oh, you get rid of them, right?
Yeah, like like everybody's invested in your recovery and your support. And like, you don't always get that from places. And you also don't, we treat people like a human being. Like you're somebody. You're not just, a drug addict or an alcoholic. Like you deserve a better life than that. And we're going to try to help you get to that point. And then I also have like an open door policy. So like if you come through our program and you're struggling and need support, like you can come back, hop in a group if you need an extra group,
Wow.
You want to see your therapist for a minute? Like we don't want you ever
So you don't ever shut
like,
the door or nothing?
No. So we really try to be there for people and keep that community going and then bring people back too. There's been people that I like hiring alumni from the last place to this one.
Got you.
So you've completed the program, you've seen that it works, and now you can help that next person and inspire them, like, hey, I went through this, I went through these groups.
Same as our program.
Today might be tough, and you might not like that group, but Rob G's next, and he's gonna light the group on fire, or Johnny's gonna do his group, and it's like,
Great.
you just try to come at an engaging program and try to keep people, a lot more positive and shower them with love, like.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Shout out to the staff, Aftermath staff, man.
Best staff in the
big
business.
Shout out. That's what I've been hearing, and I just wanted to give you guys a shout out. Let me ask you another question. What do you think we need to do more of? To try to help people. What are we slacking in, man? I mean, I'm sure when everything's not perfect, obviously people are still.
I think it's something that we've been struggling for in Massachusetts for a while. I think we have one of the best public addiction treatment services in the country.
Yeah.
But I think one of the biggest gaps in treatment is CSS beds and the difficulties of getting into a CSS bed.
What are the barriers for that?
Ideally, you need to set yourself up at like a Danvers Cab, a High Point, something that already has it in its system. So when you're in High Point's detox, you get transferred to High Point CSS, High Point's TSS, halfway house, right? Too often we're getting people that are in detox, they finish it, and then there's no place to place them. You know what I mean? And there's definitely a lot of resources that we have, but I think that area is the biggest gap for probably the last 7 or 8 years. I think that's the biggest gap that the state could potentially fill that would ultimately get people to halfway houses, which I'm like a big proponent of. The longer you stay in treatment, the better chance of success that you have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whether that's going to the worst of the worst place or the best of the best. The longer you stay connected, the better chance you have. So if you do 5-day detox in and out, what's the likelihood you're gonna be able to stay clean? It's probably not not likely. Now, if we give people a longer shot at getting help, there's a bunch of benefits to it. One, they have the chance to get clean at a higher rate. They don't have to go back to whatever trap house, bench, homeless
try to
shelter.
wait for a bed, try to stay clean, wait for somewhere else.
And then trying to get in off the streets. Like, it's
yeah.
an easier transition. And then they get to a halfway house. And then on the flip side of that, when you're talking like our tax money, because that's like, you know, part of my journey is advocacy and trying to, you know, preach to the politicians how you can save money by allotting people this much amount of treatment the first time compared to cycling them through detox 3-4 times a month.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we end up blowing so much money on people that relapse compared to like give them the best chance and make sure that there's access to the 10 to 14 day CSS, the 1 month to 6 month TSS. If we fill in the
right off the rip,
there,
you're saying
right out the gate, we're going to save tax money because you put people in a better situation. You give them a much stronger foundation, and moving forward.
Okay.
But I think that's, in my opinion, is the biggest gap when you're looking at treatment as a whole.
Yes, and is that it? Does that, you know, I know.
I mean, there's plenty of other.
Because I'm just kind of curious. I just wanted to, I'm kind of like figure out is like, because I know there's more that we can do.
Yeah, I think jobs is big. I think when you look at, you know, I'm a felon, so when you're trying to go for a good job and they see that you're a felon, you have a criminal history, you're not going to get hired. Well, if I can't get a good job, what are we going to resort to? What we know best. And what do we know best? We sell drugs, we steal, we boost, we, you know, too often friends that get $15 an hour jobs, they're like, this ain't cutting it. I can't pay rent. I can't get out of my situation. So like, we also need to try to create like career opportunities. And I've seen a lot of it. There's a lot of changes, especially over like the last probably 11, 12 years from when I started. The discussion is different. People are more open to talk about their struggles. Like when I was getting high, if my mother tried talking to the neighbor, they'd look at her like, what did you do? You know what I mean? Like, they would be looked down upon. Where now, like, you know, that's not the case. There would be supportive compassion, because, you know, back then it was like, oh, it's only in certain communities people are doing dope and oxys, and now it's like,
it's everywhere.
You know, everywhere.
Drugs are everywhere.
So I think filling in the gaps and then creating long-lasting careers that people can financially support themselves and a family. You know what I mean? If we create opportunities like that, you know, it's less likely to fall back into old behaviors or, you know, back to the streets.
Yeah, cool.
So,
let me talk about something lightly, and then I've got a couple questions. Your children. You talked about your son.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about them? What are your kids' names, and how do they look at you? Obviously, they didn't experience none of your.
No, I'm
thank
very
God,
grateful,
right?
Yes. Very grateful I didn't get high. They've never seen me high. They've never seen.
But they know
the chaos. But they know. My son knows more in depth than my daughter. But again, it's like you have different conversations at different age ranges.
How do they see you, bro?
I mean, you know, one of the cool things is they both have Googled me with their friends. So that's always, you know, a cool thing to look at. You know, my son, you know, I like to think that I'm his hero. Going back to the hero talk.
Yeah. So if you want anybody to call you hero, it's him, right?
Kids, yeah. Sometimes we lock horns because I don't appreciate his attitude, but that's the teenager.
Yeah.
And going through changes, but you know, I know he looks up to me. His mother tells me all the time that he might not listen to what I tell him because I'm constantly drilling him with advice and effort
so
and
you
body
get overprotective
language.
because you know things now from your experiences?
There's times that I'm overprotective, and there's times that I try to give him independence and freedom because I don't want to be that.
Let him make a mistake.
Yeah,
they're not no crazy. Yeah.
We all make mistakes.
Most definitely.
Like one of the biggest ways to learn from something is by making mistakes and by failure.
You learn what doesn't work.
But he also follows in my footsteps in a few other things like creativity. You know, poetry is something.
Yeah, he's a writer too.
He's doing rap now, but he makes beats. But going years back, he started out doing comic books, and he would run around my office selling comic books for like $2 a piece to staff members and stuff. And then he progressed from that to animation. So he was doing like digital animation, had a YouTube channel and everything.
Yeah?
Yeah, that he would do like storyboards and voiceover characters with him and his friends.
Wow.
So I love like the creativity, and I try to like, I feel like a lot of my like the poetry stuff I was put down for. My father told me it was a waste of time. Christian's mom didn't want me putting it out there because it was about drug addiction. She, you know, whatever. The stigma attached to it. You know, my friends kind of made fun of me. So I wasn't really supported.
For your poetry, bro?
You think poetry, you know, roses are red, violets are blue.
But that wasn't you. That wasn't what you was throwing out there.
I wrote. But, Whereas, you know, I got discouraged a lot of the time with it. I want to embrace what he does. And same thing with my daughter. My daughter wants to be a singer, but she'll flip-flop and she wants to be a vet now.
She loves animals, right?
But, you know, I try to embrace. So when my daughter wants to be a singer, there's a karaoke machine, had her singing in the living room, trying to, like, get her up on stage. Every time I have an event and they're there, I make the whole crowd clap for them, which embarrasses them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But no, I mean, it's some of the coolest stuff. Just being a parent. Like I was a father at 23 years old. Like I didn't even know who I was at that time. You know what I mean? And my son has gotten to watch my entire, you know, he was there with me this entire time, like watching my life unfold and becoming who I am today. And same thing with my daughter. And, you know, I coach their basketball teams. My daughter's a little diva, so she's gonna be a handful as she gets older. And she has. My son's a little more. He might have an attitude with me, but everybody, he's like one of the most behaved kids.
Wow.
My daughter is a terrorist.
I get it.
Troublemaker, you know, get in trouble. Yeah, she is me, girl version. So I'm like, oh man, you know, she, you know, just getting into trouble at all times. But that's my baby, so.
That's your life now,
yeah,
huh?
Yeah, family life is, you know.
That's what. Speaking of family life, you got a significant other?
Yeah.
I've seen it, but I didn't.
Yeah, I got
How does she motivate you? How does she inspire you? Because usually, let me add a better question. They say the strength of the man comes from a man comes from the woman who backs him up. Is that true in your case?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, tell her about it.
Yeah, she's beautiful. She's amazing, and she's held me down through some really rocky ups and downs, and been by my side. So even going through that circumstance, she was there for me.
Yeah.
When, like, you know, I got to a point that I provided.
It was that bad, bro? It was that bad?
I mean,
not.
It's all in perspective. It's all relative. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, you was just let down. I mean, it wasn't to a place where you started.
I didn't know how I was gonna pay for my house.
But it didn't threaten your recovery. Not that bad.
Getting high only makes it worse. You
Okay,
know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And fortunately, like, you know, going around a little bit at the time, I had two of my best friends, one good friend, one of my best friends relapse. So right while I'm going through this, I got one of my buddies calling me from a hotel, talking about boosting in Dorchester and with a girl he met from detox and chaos. And I'm like, that just would make my life 10 times worse.
Yes.
And then another buddy of mine he almost died. Like, he overdosed, got rushed to the hospial.
So
like, you get hit with that stuff, and it's like, that's perspective. Like, that's like, if I screw up, I shot heroin. I didn't shoot fentanyl. Like, I didn't do what's out there right now. Like, if I got high now the way I did then, I'm not lasting a day. You know what I mean? So, like, you get perspective like that. I didn't have those type of urges that I wanted to get high. Good. Was I severely depressed? Was I up all night? Was I not sleeping? Was I, like, going over different times over this situation? Yeah. Like, why didn't I see it then? Why didn't I prepare here? I had some bad business decisions. I bought a pizza shop at one point because I thought I was making all this money. I wanted to reinvest, and I had the treatment center, and I had opened sober houses, so now let me get the Get Well job.
Yeah.
But I hired all drug addicts and cash-only businesses. But with the best intentions, I did this, and it ultimately, like, I ended up losing a ton of money on it and basically gave it away, you know what I mean, as an L. So now you start debating, like, well, if I didn't do this, then I would have this much money.
Yeah.
Then I wouldn't be, like, you know, in the situation that I'm in. Also, on one end, I employed 40-something people, right? I gave people good-paying jobs, careers. A lot of these people have now, like, moved on, you know, progressed in the hierarchy of treatment and position-wise. But, like, when you get removed and everybody needs you, right? I need a job, Matt, or I need you to be here, or I'm a very, like, trying to take people out. Like, I never had much, so I love giving. But then I had nothing. And you look around, and it's like, loyalty gets tested. Your friends aren't calling you. Who's checking up on you?
Wow, yeah.
And
kids are looking at you.
Like, my son's scared because he went through 4 schools when he was a kid. Like, real young. I got custody of him.
So you have custody of him?
I have full custody of him, yeah. So, you know, there's a lot of things going on, and for somebody to hold you down through that, like, they could easily be like, oh, you know.
You're too much baggage. Bro.
Yeah, and then on top of it, like, it's not easy being with somebody who's successful. Like, it's the drive that I have is not a 9 to 5. Like, I don't punch out. Like, I'm working, You know what I mean? When I go home, like, to be with somebody
Try
like
to hide
that.
your phone and stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm always on it. Like, I deal with people. And then a lot of times, like, you're so spent because you give so much of yourself and you come home and it's like, I don't have, there's
Wow.
days I don't have it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to talk, or I don't like reliving my day. I don't, you know, the small talk stuff at times. And like, you know, again, going through things like that, she stood by my side, going through those battles, the doubts that was creeping up, you know, getting a business started, not having anything, like having that, you know, that rock that you can go back to that can support you through that. Like, that's something that, you know, easily somebody could dip out and be like, yeah, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
You know, not her, but other people who just date you for money. You know,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like, that's a reality. And all of a sudden, you don't have money, you can't go on trips, you can't
do all
provide
that,
that lifestyle. You're about to downsize.
Yeah.
Some women might be like, all right, no, I'm all set with you.
They're jumping
Like,
ship.
you don't provide for me anymore. Like, I'm not gonna ride it out. And
She was there no
don't
matter
matter what the situation is, you know, she holds me down and supports me and backs me. And like, when I doubt myself, you know what I mean? Like, she's there being like, no, you can do this, and believes in me. And then, you know what I mean? Like, she's same, she, you know, loves my kids.
That's dope. They love her.
Yeah, like, I'm very grateful to have her in my life. You know?
That's a beautiful thing, man. Yeah. Let me ask you a couple more questions, man. What are some of the things you're grateful for? You probably just said it, but I want any specifics. You know what I mean?
I
Really.
I try to live in a state of gratitude.
Yeah.
And
So how do you do that?
try to
Every
look at
morning?
the
What's the process?
I mean, that's more like trying to look at the good in everything. You know what I mean? Like, I'm grateful every day. I get to not work. Like, I work,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? But I don't feel like I work.
Wow.
Because,
That's what doing what you love.
yeah, like, there's no clock. There's no like, oh, I gotta, you know, a deadline or whatever. Like, I get to help people. I get to be inspired by people. I get to watch them when they're early recovery, wife left them, house being sold, can't see your kids. You know, there's a guy that he has 6 years clean now, but he cried in my arms. His wife was leaving him. He was a working addict. Wife had no idea. OD behind the wheel, and that was the first time she ever knew he did dope. And she's gonna divorce him, sell the house. She can't see the kid. So,
Wow.
So he goes through the old spot that I was at, and he gets in the sober house right after because she wouldn't let him home. Then they start talking. Then he gets invited to the couch, and I remember he called me up and he's like, Matt, she let me sleep in the big bed.
Yeah.
And he was like a little kid because he worked so hard to get there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And now, like, their relationship's stronger. He's been clean for, you know, 6 years at this point, or 5 years. But like, watching that progress as somebody who like felt broken, defeated, and what's the point of trying to stay clean? And you can't promise anybody. Like, I don't know if you're gonna stick it out.
That's only
or
up to
relapse.
you, yeah.
I go, but if you do the right thing, if you continue, like, good things are gonna happen. I can't tell you she's gonna stay. I can't tell you the house is gonna get sold. But if you do good and you stay on the right path, good things are gonna happen for you.
You're gonna be all right regardless.
Yeah, like, regardless, however it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
You know?
That's pretty good.
So I try to like wake up and look at things like that I get to do. Like, I get to live with a purpose. I get to be, you know, in this position in life. Like, I was homeless. Like, I own property. Like, I'm opening a program out of state. I bought a building out of state.
Wow.
Like, I get to do some things that, like, you just can't even, like, there's times I got to pinch myself and be like, is this even real? Like, is this, am I still sleeping? Is this
Am I in a
you're
knot?
gonna wake me up out of the coma? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, this is something I couldn't even write the way my life ended up playing out. So like, I feel at times when I get ungrateful that I like snap out of it quicker now, which can hurt my writing because my writing's from a place of pain.
Yeah.
So it's harder to write where I'm at now than when, because I got to a certain point in life.
Yeah.
But when I was coming up, when I wasn't, you know,
Because
when
pain
I
was closer. It was a little bit probably.
the
it's a little bit
pain,
closer.
I was still there. I was still looking over my shoulder at the needle. And then, like, you know, my son had to sleep in my bed because I couldn't afford a big enough space for that. I had to quit smoking because I couldn't afford it with child support before I got custody of him. Like, I had that pain of trying to grind to get to that point where now I've gotten it. And it's like, all right, I got to make sure that I stay grateful. Like, I have a beautiful home. I have multiple businesses. I have 2 beautiful kids. I got a beautiful girl. Like, I get so many blessings that it's like, you know, I've lost so many of my friends that don't get to experience that. How would I be if I grow ungrateful looking at what I have right now.
Yeah.
I look at where I was at when I was homeless and what I had then and where I'm at now. Like, how could I be
It's crazy,
ungrateful
right?
for even like the smaller things?
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean I don't fall off track. Like, I'm not perfect by any means. I get irritated, you know. I have days that you know, you get angry or you know, get ungrateful, but I try to like really try to keep the focus on that.
Cool.
So,
Yeah, that's cool. All right, one more thing, and then I'm gonna ask you, brother, to like I said, there's a camera there. You know, give a message maybe to any message you want, maybe to a mother that don't know what to do with her son. I have two more questions actually. Mother that don't know what to do with her son, or just to add that might still be out there. One thing I wanted to ask you: what's the difference between helping and enabling? All right, because that's
so there's like a fine line with
Yeah, it
that.
is.
And I've never been a person that's tried to force, like, you got to drive a hard line on, you know, somebody who's living at your home and getting high, you know, and a mother doesn't want to kick them out or show that type of tough love. Because that's like a very difficult decision. And I don't want to be the one that tells you to do something. He goes out there and never comes
I
back.
got you.
That's very difficult when you look at these scenarios. I think enabling is...
So we won't talk to them about it, but what do you think it is?
I think, you know, it's more about allowing that type of destructive behavior to continue and trying to set up some healthy boundaries, like, you know, trying to prevent the behavior from spiraling out. But, I mean, you know, unfortunately, when I was getting high, people didn't die at the same rate they die now.
Yeah.
So a lot of times now my mentality has changed completely where, like, I just want people to be alive so they can have the chance of getting clean. And sometimes that can be enabling until that pain becomes great enough.
Yeah. So no matter what, continue to show love no matter what.
Yeah, that's number one. Let them know that you love them no matter what, unconditionally, and try to be there and support them, and constantly try to, like, here's resources, I'll call a detox.
Yeah.
You know, try to put them into a position that when they are ready, that they know that they can call you and that they're not scared to call you.
They're scared to call you.
You know what I mean?
Or angry at you so much
angry,
they don't want
yeah,
to
like
deal
the
with you.
resentful, like I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I don't. I think that's you know, that's something to try. It's a difficult conversation that has evolved over time. Early on, it was more like high boundaries. If they live with you, take their phone away. Like, and over time, like I've looked at things a lot different, and there's been a lot of like death. You know what I mean? Like, there's been a lot of people passing. So, you know, when I first started working, that was kind of what a lot of people would teach, would be like, it's tough love. It's abstinence.
Tough love kill a lot of people, right?
Get your kid out of the house. You can't live here while you're getting high. But then you watch how many heartbroken mothers, how many wakes, how many caskets. It's like,
it is hard.
You can't have that. You know, I've adjusted and I've looked at things differently over time. So
yeah, we were talking about that today about Justin. We were talking about you know, like a lot in the peer center I'm at, a lot of people will still hold on to old ideas, and we're like, bro, that thing has changed, man.
Yeah.
The whole landscape has changed. All right, so one last question, brother, or one last statement. Recovery Advocate of the Year by Moore. What did that feel like, and what was that about?
that was cool.
It was cool.
that was a pretty cool.
To be recognized by them, huh?
Yeah, to be recognized in that light. You know, again, going back, when you look at you know, I constantly looked at myself as a low-life junkie that was never going to amount to anything. So any accolade, any award, you know, you're grateful for. And it's cool to be acknowledged, because at that time, 2015, at the end of 2014, there was they closed the bridge down and they shut 600 and something beds, right?
Yeah.
So you mix that with fentanyl pound in the street, right? We've had overdoses skyrocket ever since then. So at that time, I wrote this piece called The Broken System.
That's what I wanted. Yeah.
And I performed, you know, I performed that at rallies, and it was really an event on how, you know, the system of public treatment in Massachusetts needs to change, and how many people that we're losing, or whatever. So, why am I forgetting his name right now? Oh man, it's so bad. Governor of Massachusetts, Charlie Baker. Charlie Baker.
It happens.
So Charlie Baker was going around and doing his listening parties, and we were in the State House, and everybody's like, "Oh, Matt, you should do the poem. You should do the poem." And it was just supposed to be a 2-minute testimony, what you think you need, or whatever. And ultimately, I go up, and there's a mom up there talking about her kid passing, And I was going to try to plug the gaps in treatment of CSS beds, because I'm like a firm believer that could resolve a lot, because we have plenty of detox beds. Neither here nor there. Mom goes up, talks about her lost kid. A lot of people on the panel weren't even paying attention to her. It looked like, Charlie was in his phone.
Business as usual, right?
Yeah, it felt like a horse and pony show. And then when you look at, no offense to this guy, but the first thing he did when he stepped foot in office was cut substance abuse funding. After running a campaign based on we're going to help break down the barriers to treatment and we're going to make all this change. And then his first act in office was cut substance abuse funding, because we don't have a voice. We can't talk up. A lot of people that have careers, their careers on the line, and the stigma associated with it, they can't be like, hey, I'm a heroin addict that got clean. I'm an alcoholic that got clean, because repercussions or whatever, a lot, certain employers don't want their employees talking about their story. So I get up there and I do the broken system, staring into this man's soul. And the whole place goes crazy after. Made like a bunch of news clips and stuff like that. And a lot of that advocacy and really challenging the system at times. And, I helped form Somerville Overcoming Addiction, which spawned into a whole bunch of them. That was the original one. And there was a bunch in the state of Mass that popped off after, and recovery events. And Mary Ann, who was the first person that gave me a recovery event to perform at, in I think 2010 at the Ride for Recovery, she honored me as Recovery Advocate of the Year.
Wow.
And that was like, such a cool moment. She's a rock star. Yeah. She's amazing. And my family was there, which not a lot of times, and it's not their fault. I'm terrible at communicating, but a lot of what I've done, I just do, and
spontaneously just go.
Yeah, and I don't really tell people what I have going on. I'm there, I'll perform, I'll speak, whatever. And like my little sister was there, and that meant the world to me.
Wow.
Receiving that award, my best friend, Eddie, and some other people that I love, I was surrounded by.
So how's things with your family now?
It's good.
Everything's good?
Yeah, my father's my hero. That's my best friend right
Gotcha.
there. My mom's doing good. I have a better relationship with my father and my mother, but I don't know. It just is what it is.
You're a father now, and you got
yeah. So but I have a good relationship. My little sister's everything. We had some trying times. We had some difference of opinions over the last 3 years, and some of the stuff that was going on with COVID and stuff like that, and put a lot of strain on family, relations and personal decisions and stuff like that. So
that's regular stuff.
But
regular stuff.
You get through it. I'll go to war for anyone in my family. So, but I'm blessed. Like, I'm grateful that I have them in my life. But
that's good. All right, Matt. So listen. So again, now you're speaking about that. Can I get you to do a poem right here?
Yeah.
All right. Yes. So, you can say do any poem you want, and then after I'll allow you to speak it to that.
Right,
go ahead, bro. It's yours.
So, I'll do the broken system. So we were just talking
that sounded dope right there. Yeah.
So, when I got hot, it was to escape the pain of hurting. Explaining an addiction to a normal person like a woman with no kids, explaining the pain of birthing. Let me break it down to you. Those 4 to 5 day spin washes aren't working. We need to scrap the Massachusetts model of treatment and come up with a better version, because these suits and ties would rather close their curtains, ignoring the state's overdose rate is continuously surging. These politicians must be living a fairy tale, at times trying to get into a detox like a dog chasing its own tail. A system is set up for us to fail to the point sometimes it's easier to go detox in jail. Call the programs up to here, we got no beds. Then when you do get into detox, they load you up with enough meds until the entire unit looks like a night of living dead. A 4 to 5 day escape from the day-to-day, a safe place to stay. But there's no beds and aftercare programs, so the decision gets made to hand you a list and send you on your way. Back to the same old same, like those 4 days is gonna fix the years of pain, years of strain, years of sniffing pills to push your poison in your veins. Addiction's like a ball and chain of save whenever it calls your name, weighing you down until it buries you in the grave. And then when you do hit the streets, further treatment is just out of reach. So you keep a dirty urine instead of being clean. Recovery's only seen in the better parts of your dreams, living the nightmare transforming into a fiend. And there's not a soul alive that can hear you scream. But you know what you need. Even though the sickness got a trick up his sleeve, starts whispering in your ear till you start to believe that you got a grip, you can handle your disease till they find your buddy dead with an empty IV. Another number, another statistic added to the thousands this year. One thing remains clear as I bury more and more of my peers, that most people out there, they don't really care until it's one of their loved ones added to the prayers. A Facebook wall flooded with love. Rants and raves about how we all hate this drug. I think it's getting a little too overcrowded up above. Heaven needs to start taking my people. The origins of this epidemic are see-through. Pharmaceutical companies gave birth to a generation addicted to the needle. Legal drug dealing doctors influenced by money is pure evil. Flood the streets of painkillers, then you pull them off the market. To make it easier to transition into heroin when the withdrawals hit the hardest. I don't even think we face the worst part of it. I sit here with a heavy soul, broken-hearted, praying for the daily departed and those that are lost will find their light inside of the darkness. Coming out clean on the other side. I want to spark a rallying cry that might save a few lives. Every day another angel flies while an entire community mourns while saying their goodbyes. All I can do is try to prove to you that it's worth staying alive.
Yeah, that's dope. Good stuff. All right, bro.
I think I messed that up.
No, you good. That's dope. You have anything else you want to say? Any shout outs? Anything you want?
Yeah.
This is you right here, bro. It's your time.
I know we want to end things on a positive note. Real quick. I just want to say rest in peace to Susan Moore. It's my best friend Jenna's mom that passed away recently, and she was like a mom to me. And you know, she was in recovery, big part of the recovery community in North Shore, New Hampshire, and she was such like a loving person. And just want to give her a shout out because she's gonna be missed, and I know, you know, she's always gonna be there. You know, like that's one of the things that I look at as a lot of my friends are my guardian angels that guide me through life. And you know, it's heartbreaking that she's lost, but I've gained another person that's looking out for me while I'm here, and to look over Jenna. But you know, if you're out there struggling, like really give yourself a chance, give yourself a shot. Like I promise you, this side of things is a lot better than the side of strung out, waking up dope sick, pissing out of all holes, and needing your fix. You know, give yourself a chance, like, and try to move forward from that life. Like, you deserve such a better life than the chaos and the stress that comes with drinking, drugging, getting high, lying, cheating, stealing, manipulating. Like, you don't have to live like that. Like, there's such a better way. And a lot of it is just reaching out to people. Like, there's so many people out there that have put their recovery out out in the open for you to see, that you can reach out to any one of them and they're going to be able to help you and try to do what they can to put you in a position to succeed. And big shout out to the Aftermath staff. They're, you know, the best in the business. Absolutely incredible. They give themselves day in and day out, hardworking, genuine, authentic, real recovery, and you know, we get to put people in such a better situation than when they're coming into us. And it, you know, the success that we've achieved and that we've seen stems from their hard work and dedication every day to people that are struggling. And you know, I love my kids. Big shout out to them. Matt Ganem the Poet on Facebook. Instagram is Matt Ganem _poet. I think Twitter's the same thing. You can see Aftermath on Facebook, Aftermath Addiction Treatment Center, Aftermath _treatment Instagram, Aftermath _TC, or Aftermath TC for Twitter. So.
And what we'll do, we'll put all that up at the end of the show, all this contact information. Appreciate you coming. That was real dope, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
That poem,
man.
Anytime, man. I want you to send Rob G through here one day.
Yeah.
Whenever you get, you know, what I mean,
I'll tell him. He'll do it. He'll be out here.
Yeah, whenever he gets time, man. Tell him it's a good time. We just chill. You know what I mean? I really do appreciate it. Wish you much success, man. And I understand how you feel about your son. You know what I mean? I get that. My son's only 4, and my mind always is already going. It's like, damn. You know what I mean? What are the chances, right? You hear that. You hear so much, but you know, it's in God's hands, and just keep doing the next right thing. And I thank you guys for watching the show. You know, this thing is, you know, we have to be a little bit more compassionate with people, especially people that are out there, you know, hurting themselves, beating themselves up. They don't need people to beat them up. You know, it doesn't matter what a person, if you're up here down or you're down there. I think the thing is, being a human being, you show the loving kindness to and extend it to the next human being that might be hurting. I mean, that's how to make the world better. As always, I like to say, please subscribe to the channel, push the like button, and share this show. And to Taisha, I love you. To Darryl, I love you. And to Zayla, I love you. Peace.